Hi, welcome to another installment of the Whitaker-Myers Wealth Manager's Question of the Week. As a reminder, if you have a question that you'd like us to answer, please send it to our Chief Operations Officer, Amanda Sherritt, at asherritt@whitakerwealth.com. You should be seeing that email address on your screen. You can email her for any questions. Now, today's question comes from Hawk in Massillon, Ohio. Hawk asks, with so much talk from you all about the Federal Reserve trying to slow down the labor market and push unemployment up, could you explain the difference between the labor force participation rate and the unemployment rate? Well, Hawk, thank you so much for that question. You are dead right. We have been talking about the labor force participation rate, the unemployment rate, basically labor, in light of the Federal Reserve's goal of killing inflation by slowing down the economy, most specifically the hottest part of the economy, which is the labor market and the housing market. Those two economic indicators you mentioned or you asked in the question are both important and instructive to what's happening within our economy. So let's answer your question, but I'm going to first start by answering what is the labor force participation rate. The labor force participation rate is exactly as it sounds. It is just an estimate of what is our economy's actual active workforce. The people like you and I that could and should be working are the people that they're trying to tabulate. The way the calculation works is this. They take all 16 and older folks that are currently working or at least seeking employment and dividing that by the total non-institutionalized civilian working population. Let's use a quick example. If we have 10 people in our economy, 2 of those are ages 2 and 4. Thus, we have 8 working age adults. Let's say of those 8, 2 are looking for work and 4 are actually working, so 6 are actually working. Thus, we have a labor force participation rate of 75%. Because the labor force participation rate includes people who have given up looking for work, which is a key difference in the unemployment rate and the labor force participation rate, which I'll talk about in a second, it makes sense that it's a somewhat more reliable number for understanding the state of our economy. As you can see on your screen here, Hawk, the labor force participation rate before COVID was 63.4% and made quite a bit of drop before settling in around 62.3, where it stands after our last reading in the month of September. The employment rate is slightly different. We typically look at these in conjunction of each other, but the unemployment rate is released the first Friday of each month from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this number looks at those unemployed individuals, which are people who are willing and available to look for work and have actively sought work within the last 4 weeks. To be considered employed, you must have some sort of employment, temporary, part-time, or full-time, and even those who work for 15 hours at least for a family business or a farm are considered employed. They do seasonally adjust these numbers because, as you can imagine, during back to school time or Christmas, retailers have to add a ton of staff. And many folks who want to work but cannot find employment and haven't looked for employment in the last 4 weeks become discouraged and they stop looking. Then they no longer fall into the unemployment rate. So those that criticize the unemployment rate typically do so because of that very fact. As you can see from the unemployment rate, pre-COVID shows 3.5%, and now post-COVID is back to 3.5% as of our last reading. So as we discussed, the labor force participation rate actually shows a less positive, albeit still good, picture of the labor market. So effectively what you're seeing here is you're seeing the fact that those folks that just get discouraged, stop looking for work, still fall into the labor force participation rate, but they don't get counted in the unemployment rate, and that's the major difference of those two numbers. So Hawk, thanks so much for your question. I think it's the first economic question we've gotten from a client, nothing particular to your situation, other than I think you're hoping that you don't fall into that unemployment rate and you stay part of that active labor force participation rate, meaning you don't go to jail and become institutionalized. Because if you go to jail, you do not count in the labor force participation rate. So make sure you keep your P's and Q's tidy and you don't get in any trouble there, Hawk. Thanks so much for the question. If you have a question, like we talked about, email it to Amanda. She'll be happy to get your question answered in one of the upcoming videos that we do over the next few weeks. If you'd like to schedule a meeting with any of our advisors, you can go to the notes section of this video, and there's a link to right to our scheduling tool where you can pick any of the advisors that you'd want to schedule a meeting with, or you can also visit our blog where we write some great content about different financial planning, tax planning, and economic things that are going on in the economy today. So thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.